Eto pala ang reason kung bakit itong si Menardo Guevarra, ang Solgen, ang council ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas ay hindi or nag-decline na sumagot or depensahan si Marcos Jr., yung group efforts na sinasabi ni John Vic Remulla. So ngayon, sila ang naglagay sa sarili nila sa alanganin by doing that illegal arrest. Gusto nilang gamitin si Solgen para ipagtanggol sila doon sa gusot nila. So, going back, ito pong interview kay Solgen 2 years ago. Ito yung stance niya 2 years ago, and I believe ito yung stance niya pa rin ngayon dahil doon sa pag-decline niya na maging kasangkapang idepensa ang ginawang illegal arrest. Kaya nananahimik siya, kaya hindi siya dumidepensa. Kasi for me, I believe it is because doon sa stance. Kasi kung gagayahin niya yung ginagawa nila Remulla brothers na eto yung sinabi ni Boying noon tapos iba yung sinasabi niya ngayon, ang hirap nga naman ipagtanggol yung something na alam mo namang mali, ginagawa mong tama. So, kung titignan ninyo, babalikan natin yung oral arguments kung saan nandun itong si Solgen. Ang hirap niyang sagutin yung bagay na yun kasi mali-mali eh. Naisip niya siguro na pag ito naman ipapasok na naman nila ako dito sa illegal arrest na ito, hindi na tumatalima doon sa prinsipyo ko. Kaya gusto kong balikan natin itong interview na ito. Tingnan natin ito.
But explain more fully why we say that the pretrial chamber erred in ruling that the ICC still has jurisdiction over us. The pretrial chamber declared that the court still has jurisdiction because according to the Rome Statute, notwithstanding the withdrawal of a member state, the ICC retains jurisdiction over crimes that were committed during the time that the withdrawing member state was still a member. Now, we pointed out something in our appeal.
Ito yung ini-explain nila Attorney Harry Roque, Attorney Vic Rodriguez, yung mga abogado natin. Ito yun sinasabi niya mismo.
Brief. That is not exactly correct. The court must retain jurisdiction at the time that its exercise of that jurisdiction is called upon. So it's not enough that the crimes were committed during the time that the withdrawing member state was still a member. It must also be important to note that at the time you will exercise that jurisdiction, that member state was still a member. All right. So in our particular case, the request by the ICC prosecutor to commence his investigation, that triggered the exercise of jurisdiction by the ICC. And when was that? That was already in September of 2021. Our withdrawal had become effective in March of 2019, Karen. So at the time that the exercise of jurisdiction was triggered, we were no longer a member of the ICC, and we have no legal duty anymore to cooperate.
But then isn't the exercise of jurisdiction, doesn't that really cover the period when the crimes were committed? I mean, this is just a discussion on jurisdiction. Because when you think about what the ICC just recently did, they issued a warrant of arrest against Vladimir Putin. It seems they don't care about jurisdiction, really. It doesn't matter if you remember. It doesn't matter when the crimes are committed. They will do what they want to do.
May purpose talaga, may plano talaga. Regardless, yung sinasabi natin, hindi kasi hindi siya active, hindi na in effect. Wala silang pakialam. Kahit anong basta pursu pa rin, tuloy pa rin.
Well, are we talking about the case of Russia, Karen?
Not yet. Just jurisdiction. The period of when crimes are committed. Isn't that the area of jurisdiction?
Well, the area of jurisdiction is one thing When you will exercise that jurisdiction is another thing. That's what we're saying in the appeal brief. At the time that you were called upon to exercise that jurisdiction, we were not a member anymore. So that exercise of jurisdiction must concur with the requirement that the offense or the crime, subject matter of the investigation, was committed during the time that the member state was still a member.
Okay, so what
Claro.
we're talking about is the exercise.
Exercise.
That's the different. That's the
Correct.
difference.
Claro.
The jurisdiction is not a time frame. What you're talking about is exercising.
Exercise of
You
that-
believe
Na hindi na tayo membro.
still have to be within the ICC for them to exercise that.
Correct.
Okay, you said first that it will have far-reaching
Yan.
consequences for the Philippines if we disengage. Is that was, I mean, when we had the report, is that what you meant? You were reacting to the president's statement?
No, Karen.
Okay.
I said that in connection with the promulgation of the ICC Appeals Chamber's resolution denying our request for suspensive effect. So I reacted to that because the implication of that ruling is pwede nang mag-investigate yung ICC prosecutor anytime now, even if the appeal is still pending. So if the ICC prosecutor begins to investigate, that can lead to so many things. And it could lead even to the issuance of warrants of arrest, etc., etc., and so many other things that the ICC prosecutor can do. So that effectively puts us in the same class as some rogue nations, no, where the rule of law was not really observed or upheld. Kaya parang it puts us in a very humiliating situation,
Oo,
so to speak, that
Kakahiya.
the ICC prosecutor will come in or conduct his investigation anywhere that he wishes, but we're open to all of these kinds of activities that may actually embarrass our country.
All right. With the way the ICC has decided on certain appeals, number one, this government has also asked at first if members of the victims' families should be denied to comment. They declined that, right?
Yes.
Number two is they declined the suspensive request. They will continue with the investigation anyway. So it seems that
Regardless.
they are going they're decided. That's the message we're getting. You don't
May
have to be
plano
a
na.
lawyer to get it,
Yes,
right?
correct.
The
May
ICC
game
is
plan
saying,
na.
we will do what we want to do. In layman's terms. Ang tanong ngayon, what can they really do? What can they do?
You know, let me expound a bit on that
Yeah.
on that point, Karen. Right from the beginning, we got this feeling na parang regardless of what we do, that they will really proceed to do an investigation and indict some individuals, no? From the beginning, right? From the beginning, way back in, I guess in 2017, when certain complaints were filed, we never even saw a copy of any of these complaints. We were not given the courtesy of taking a look at the complaints filed before the ICC. Number two, of course, we engage with the ICC for the purpose of dialogue, not submitting to the jurisdiction, but because we wanted to let them know that we're doing something here already in our country. We provided them information, data about the things that we were doing domestically insofar as investigation was concerned. All right, so they disregarded all of those information that they themselves requested. They found them insufficient based on their own standards. Thirdly, even at a very late stage, they allowed the participation of victims. Let me clarify this, Karen. We're not opposing the participation of victims in all of these proceedings. That's their right. Sila yung
The very late stage they allowed. Kaya siguro pinasok nila si Aling Sheila, no? Matubato, Las Cañas, mga chismoso, mga chismis. Pwede pala yun.
biktima, allegedly. But what we're saying is, on a procedural note, it's not proper na dito sa appeal stage ay meron pang papasok na victims groups. Kasi doon sa pre-trial chamber, they had no participation.
Oh.
Now, all of a sudden, doon sa last phase, doon sa appeals phase, they will be
Biglang
allowed to participate. So, on a procedural ground, we were objecting. After all, the purpose of the appeal process is to expedite the resolution. So, with the inclusion of more groups, anonymous groups at that, we expect na magkakaroon ng delay in the resolution.
So how do you expect na yung like for example ipapasok nila yung kay Kian? Di ba nabigyan ng justice yun? Nagpasalamat pa yung pamilya ni meet pa yung si Tatay Digong. Ano yun? Tapos biglang may injustice at sa ICC idinulog?
Of the appeal. So, and the last straw was the denial of our request for suspensive effect. So, parang we see a pattern, no? Na parang right from the beginning up to the very end, parang there is an intention.
Tanggalin mo na yung we dyan. Hindi ka kasama dyan. Nabudol ka. Solgen, nabudol ka. Akala mo, sinusundan mo yung pronouncement ng Pangulo na ito na hindi makipag-cooperate. Pero lingid sa kaalaman mo, meron na silang kasunduan. Kumbaga, tanggalin mo na yung we. Hindi ka kasama dun.
The part of the ICC, na tuluyan talaga ang Pilipinas. So, despite our own
Tuluyan talaga ang mga Duterte.
efforts to observe yung proper rules and procedures under the Rome Statute, it seems that we're not getting anywhere. But nonetheless, nahandyan na yung appeal. It's ready for decision after the ICC prosecutor submits his response to our appeal brief. And that will come next week, if I'm not mistaken. After that, then it's up to the ICC Appeals Chamber to render a judgment. So we'll just await that.
But can the ICC, number one, investigate without going to the alleged scene of the crime itself?
Pwede.
Can they investigate by interviewing victims on Zoom, with lawyers submitting affidavits? Can they proceed
With Trillanes submitting affidavits. Ayan, mga chismoso.
without going to the Philippines itself?
Karen, exactly the things that you mentioned, the ICC prosecutor can do that. He need not even come here. He can bring witnesses outside the country so that the witnesses can testify, execute affidavits, or they can do the interviews online, or they can make use of certain non-governmental organizations in the Philippines to do this for them, or they can communicate and ask for certain data from other people who may provide information, even the media. So all of this are possible, and it's
Kahit
not
mga chismis, pwede.
necessary for the ICC to come here. Because they can conduct it anyway, anyhow, anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, and the second question is, if this goes to trial, can the ICC try a concerned party, in this case former President Duterte and perhaps several others, even without their participation?
No.
They
The
cannot.
answer to that is no. Because the trial will have to be done at the seat of the ICC at The Hague in the Netherlands. So in the first place, they have to acquire jurisdiction over the person of the person indicted. All right, so let's say it's person X. So that person must be able to, the person of that individual must be brought before the ICC trial chamber at The Hague, but he must first be arrested unless he surrenders voluntarily. All right, so otherwise there could be no trial in absentia. That is not possible.
So we can compare it. This is where we talk about
So,
the ICC issuing a warrant of arrest against Vladimir Putin. They clearly conducted
so nakita ninyo kung ano yung sagot niya, no, di ba? Unless the person will have to be in The Hague. So nakita ninyo yung pattern kung bakit kinailangan nila talagang dalhin si PRRD at the soonest, the possible, na hindi inantay na dalhin doon sa competent court, okay, doon sa host country or doon sa ano. Kasi nga pala, kailangan talagang PRD should have to be there. Kaya no, kasi wala si Duterte. So, ano ang makapagpapatuloy ng pagdinig kay PRRD sa the Netherlands? He should have to be arrested. Paano siya naaresto? Don't tell me Interpol. Walang nasabi, nabanggit, pasasalamat sa Interpol doon sa ICC statements about Interpol. Wala po. Kundi it is just the local police authority.
The
Pakinggan niyo to.
investigation on their own, although globally,
Grabe,
we know
no?
what's been happening in Ukraine and Russia. But let's talk about that in comparison to the
Grabe.
possible charges and case that former President Duterte may face.
So,
So, go ahead.
well,
They issued a warrant.
when the ICC prosecutor begins his investigation, part of that investigation may involve the issuance of a warrant of arrest. The ICC prosecutor may request the pretrial chamber of the ICC to issue such a warrant, or maybe a summons, no, if a warrant of arrest is not really necessary. But the matter of serving that
Ayan.
arrest warrant or the summons will have to be done through local institutions or
Ay.
agencies.
Oh.
Because the ICC has
Local.
no legal, in other words, enforcement unit to effect such service of warrants of arrest or summons or follow up with government agencies. They will have to rely on the operating agencies of the custodial state. In this
Agoy! Mentioned by the Solgen himself, yun na. Custodial state, police body. Walang Interpol na involved kundi police natin. Nakita nyo naman, si Torre.
case, the Philippines, because that's where
ano
the
sabi?
suspects
Pakiulit.
are state. On the operating agencies of the custodial state, in this case the Philippines, because that's where the suspects are
Kaya
to be
naman
found.
pala.
So that's the question now. Do you go to the PNP? I mean, ICC goes to the PNP and requests the PNP to serve
Sabihin mo Interpol.
the warrant of arrest on Senator X or anyone else. They will probably do that. So the question is, will these government operating units cooperate with them or support their efforts to acquire jurisdiction over the persons of the
So, kailangan talaga ng cooperation ng gobyerno. Kasi kung hindi, walang mag-i-implement ng warrant of arrest. Walang kinalaman ng Interpol dito. Huwag nyo kaming linlangin.
persons of interest.
Clearly, there are still no specific individuals named
Yes.
in the ICC probe. I think let's put that out there.
Yes.
It is assumed that it is former President Duterte because it was his drug war, but technically there are no names involved. So the question is, you being the Solicitor General, why are we pouring in government resources, your time, the President being interviewed on this, when hypothetically, if it is the former president, it was his drug war, he's now a civilian, why is the government protecting him and others? What is the business of this government? Not wanting justice for its people, not wanting transparency. Kumbaga, ang lumalabas, ang gobyernong ito, nag-aabala. We are lawyering you, not personally, but the government is now lawyering, not for the country, but for specific individuals who can be, who is one, possibly, if he's included in the case, a civilian. Why is the government defending, protecting people who may be guilty instead of its own interests, which are people who are victims of the drug war? That's the question on everyone's mind. Why are you defending, protecting people who could be guilty?
Yung pala inaakala natin ano, na dinedefend ng gobyerno si Tatay Digong, yung pala meron na palang kasunduan. At itong si Solgen Guevarra, walang kaalam-alam, akala niya, fina-follow niya yung sinasabi ng kanyang amo na we will not cooperate. Pero nabudol pala itong si Solgen.
Aaron, I have already explained this point several times before, and I have clarified that.
And it's not personal, it's not you as a lawyer.
Of course.
Not at all.
Right.
It's the post.
Right. And I have repeatedly explained that the office of the Solicitor General is the counsel of the Republic of the Philippines.
Oo, dati. Ngayon hindi na, ayaw mo na.
Not lawyering for any particular individual, more so if the individual is charged criminally. All right, so we are defending, in effect, the principle that our domestic, judicial, and legal system is functioning. And for that reason, there is no basis for an international entity like the ICC to impose upon ourselves their own type of investigation, because our own system is working. It may be not to their liking, but that is not a sufficient ground for them to take over the investigation that our own system is already doing. That's our main point. The OSG is protecting the system that we have here in our country, regardless of who may be the individuals who may be charged in the future. We're not looking at that anymore. What we're protecting is our sovereign right to do our own investigation in our own way within the framework of our own legal and judicial system. That's all that we want to project to the ICC. We're not protecting anyone.
Yun
That's
naman pala eh.
farthest from our mind.
Okay, then Solgen, I mean, this is way before your time. If this was the argument of the Philippines, why did we join the ICC in the first place? This isn't like the United States. The United States did help craft the ICC, but the irony is they never joined the ICC.
They help craft, pero hindi sila member. Ano yun? Lokohan lang to. Baka siguro dahil gusto nila, sila yung tumulong gawin ito para i-weaponize laban sa kanilang mga kalaban. Ang matatalino yung mga kalaban nila. China hindi member, Russia hindi member, Philippines nag-withdraw, pero may traitor.
Correct?
Yes,
Right?
that's true.
But the irony is, the Philippines joined the ICC. This was the time of former President Noynoy Aquino. And no less than President Marcos Jr., when he was a senator, voted on August 23, 2011 to ratify the Rome Statute. Former President Marcos didn't question during the Senate hearings. He didn't express reservations. In other words, if this is the argument today, then why did we join it in the first place, right? By joining the ICC, we as a country, and not personally, we're saying we recognize that you can investigate crimes against humanity. We recognize your power, your authority, your jurisdiction. Why did we do that in the first place if we're saying now our courts are working? And that was under Aquino's time.
Right. Well, we joined the ICC because we believe.
Hindi, kasi plano talaga nila during Aquino's time eh. Plano talaga nila yan, whether mag-presidente o hindi si PRRD, kahit mayor yan, pwede nilang dalhin sa ICC. But they know na malakas si Duterte, na malakas ang ugong-ugong na magiging presidente. Talagang ira-ratify nila yan.
That crimes of that magnitude should really be investigated and prosecuted by a much bigger tribunal than the local tribunals. Imagine the four crimes.
Ito, yung susunod niyang sasabihin dito, nakakagulat coming from Solgen, na yung kasong ikinaso kay PRRD ay hindi tumatalima doon sa war on drugs ni Tatay Digong.
That the ICC can investigate genocide,
Genocide,
war crimes, war of aggression or
War
crimes
of
of aggression, and crimes against humanity.
crimes against
So,
humanity.
the magnitude of these offenses is so much that probably a local court will not be able to independently and efficiently handle such crimes. No? So, in our case, we are saying that the war on drugs does not even fall under any of those four categories.
Bagoy! Agoy! Huli! Ano sabi mo? Ulitin mo.
Drugs does not even, in our case, we are saying that the war on drugs does not even fall under any of those four categories.
Oh, please bring back PRRD home. Hindi pala nagpo-fall sa kategory yung war on drugs. Bakit?
We do not consider the war on drugs as a crime against humanity because it's a
Bakit?
legitimate law enforcement operation. It's called war on drugs.
Oh.
It's not a war on drug users
Oh.
or a war on drug pushers.
Oh.
No. It's a war against the crime itself. We're trying to address that situation.
Oh, coming from the Solgen. Palisiya, programa ng gobyerno para matupok, matepok, to combat yung criminality due to yung mga addict, mga durugista, mga drug lords. Hindi siya pasok sa crimes against humanity, kaya please bring back PRD
In the
home.
course of that campaign, however, many people died. But it's
6,180.
Oh, yung mga namatay na yan, syempre magfo-fall yan sa jurisdiction ng Pilipinas. Sabi nila 6,000. Tapos ngayon, ilan?
5, I think. That's the PNP numbers.
Oh.
yes,
Okay,
apparently.
yes, go
yes.
ahead.
Oh, so hindi na totoo yung PNP numbers?
But then it's believed to be more than 10,000.
Oh, sino nagsabing 10,000? Ngayon, 30,000. Aba, baka kung sino-sino nung binasahan si Tatay Digong sa The Hague. O ilan? 43 lang. Asan yung 6,000? Nasaan yung 10,000 na 30,000
But
ninyo?
go on.
Yes. What I'm saying is that operation called war on drugs does not fit
Oh.
the concept of a crime against humanity.
Agoy, pakiulit nga. Pakiulit.
Does not fit. What I'm saying is that operation called war on drugs does not fit the concept of a crime against humanity. Okay, so we're disputing that. And that is very well explained in our own submissions.
Oops, Attorney Nicholas Kaufman, paki-bear in mind itong sinasabi ni Solgen, from the Philippine government po ito. Please bear in mind, alam naman nila ito, na ito ay dahil programa ng gobyerno para ma-crackdown itong mga durugista na ito. Paano mo gagawing crimes against humanity ito? Unlike nung ginawa ni Hitler, yun yung crimes against humanity. Kasi genocide yung mga yan Papatayin mo, mass murder ang ginawa mo doon. Ang dami. Hindi yun pasok or hindi kakayanin yon nung isang bansa. Kaya kailangan ilagay mo sa ICC.
To the ICC pre-trial chamber. Well, of course, somehow we mentioned it again in the appeals brief of the Philippine government. But that's our main point. So when this whole investigation about the war on drugs turned to be, from the president's point of view, something like there seems to be some political agenda
Ayun.
involved in it.
Ayun,
the
kasama si Marcos.
ICC seems to be somehow cooperating in that in one sense. The president thought it proper. Mag-withdraw na lang tayo dyan. Let's just withdraw. Okay, because it's not serving its purpose anymore.
Si PRRD.
But do you believe the ICC has a political agenda?
It's hard to say. Some people would say na it's rather obvious. So that is a possibility. I cannot really, speculate on what's going on in the minds of the justices of the ICC. So tayo na lang ang mag-judge. Let's judge the ICC by their own actions. As a lawyer, I tend to, give credence and good faith to all that our courts and prosecutors are doing as a lawyer. But I'm not a political leader.
Yeah.
And therefore, my views regarding political motives would be irrelevant. So I leave that to the political leadership.
And I wanted to ask you, I mean, just by speaking to you right now, because I've interviewed you many times on Head Start as Justice Secretary, just to lighten the moment a bit, is it difficult for you? I mean, given that you were Justice Secretary under the time of former President Duterte, where the...
Kaya naman pala, may nanunuot pang dugo mula sa pagiging under gabinete ni Tatay Digong.
war on drugs was actually implemented. So I remember all our interviews during that particular time, and you did issue strict statements on, frankly speaking, I remember abuse of enforcers. You said that on Head Start.
Totoo
Yes,
naman yun.
there are abuses and you don't tolerate that.
Oo, mismo si PRD nagsabi, purging yan pinupurge. Purging of those hawak nila, di ba? May mga handlers kasi yung mga yan. Kung hindi nila itutumba yung mga yan, magsusumbong yung mga yan. Matotokhang magsusumbong, ma-identify kung sino yung kanilang handler, ang kanilang boss. Kaya nga sabi ni PRD, ba't namin gagawin yan? Papatayin mo, tas babalutin mo parang mami, tas dadalhin mo dito. Hindi. Kung maki-enkwentro yan, dyan na mismo yan. Ba? Gawain ng mga yan, purging of those na hawak nila para hindi sila maisumbong.
And now you're wearing a different hat.
No, I have always been consistent. When
Consistent.
I explained or declared to the public that there were abuses committed during the war on drugs, not only in your program, but
Yeah.
even before the UN Human
Yes.
Rights Council, I made that disclosure. Of course, I knew that it would probably upset some people in the government, but that's a fact. And I had to inform the public of the findings of the Department of Justice during my time. Yun ang nakita namin, so I had to report it. And the President himself also admits that there were abuses during the war on drugs. So, what am I doing now? As Solicitor General, I am telling the people that the government is now investigating those very people who we found to have abused the war on drugs. So, I'm just saying that...
Di ba doon nga si Kian, nabigyan naman ng hustisya yun? Nakulong habang buhay yung 3 pulis na involved doon. Minute pa ni Tatay Digong yung pamilya. Tapos ngayon, sasabihin nila may injustice. Paano nangyari yun? Gumulong ang kanilang kaso at nasolve ang kanilang kaso. Tapos ngayon dadalhin nila sa ICC.
To the ICC, we're already doing it. You don't need to come in because we're already doing it. So there's no inconsistency between what I'm saying now as Solicitor General and what I said before as Justice Secretary.
Ito yung pinagkaiba ni Solgen Guevarra kila Remulla at yung mga himod puwet ngayon sa administrasyon. Kasi makikita natin, consistent talaga siya. Bakit? Hindi siya nag-participate or ayaw niyang mag-participate, depensahan si Marcos Jr. sa kanilang gusot ngayon na sumagot sa Supreme Court or maging lawyer ng gobyerno when yun yung mandato nitong ni Solgen. Pero ayaw niyang mag-participate. Bakit? Kasi kokontrahin niya yung mga prior, yung mga nasabi niya before. Yung sinabi niya before, tas ngayon, didepensahan niya, di magkukontra yun, kagaya sila Remulla Brothers. Sinabi niya dito sa interview, tapos iba yung sasabihin niya nung nasa hearing ni Senator Amy. Sinabi ni Remulla dati na ni Boying na kapag hinuli man ng Interpol yan o hinuli man yan, kailangan dalhin pa rin sa competent court. Tapos ngayon sasabihin nila, kami ang naging competent court. Paano yan? hindi sila consistent.
They're actually a continuation of each other.
But do you think while our courts are working, do you honestly believe that our courts would be able to, at this point on the war on drugs, frankly, charge a former president or even a sitting
Bakit hindi? Diba?
senator or anyone in office?
It depends on the evidence because an investigation will have to be done first. All right, and if the evidence shows some complicity on the part of the president, then the appropriate charges will have to be filed in court. So let's leave it at that. It all depends on the evidence. What evidence is there to show actual complicity or direct orders of the president for a law enforcement agent to commit a crime? So did his orders constitute a crime? So that is for the investigation to find out. But of course, we trust that if evidence is sufficient, the courts will not have second thoughts about trying a former president. We have seen that many times before. We had 2 presidents who were charged in court. So why would a third one
Arroyo at saka si Erap, di ba? So, ang question dito is, nasa ano tayo ngayon? Nag-aaway na ang Marcos at Duterte. So, kung talagang merong evidence, hard evidence with regard to the sinasabi 30,000, bakit hindi bring to the Court of the Philippines? Sila yung batas ngayon, sila yung in charge, sila yung may hawak ng Pilipinas ngayon. So bakit kinailangan pang dalhin sa ICC? Na yung ICC pwede pa rin silang bumase sa evidence kahit na yung evidence ay chismis. Kagaya yung sasabihin ni Matubato na naging part siya ng DDS, yung Davao Death Squad, na marami daw silang pinatay. Tapos tinanong siya personally, ikaw, ilan yung pinatay mo? Sabi niya, wala pa. Marami ka bang pinatay? Sabi niya, wala. So, ano yun? Kukunin pa rin nilang witness yun?
be not possible?
Okay. All
Lokohan
right.
to
Justice Secretary Remulla said when I asked him, are we sending mixed messages?
So,
that we
anyway,
the last visitor of the EU Human Rights Committee said, we've given up our own.
So anyway, magtatapos na tayo dito. Ang pinaka-importanteng nasabi dito ni Solgen Guevarra is yung sinabi niya na hindi pasok sa crimes against humanity yung war on drugs ni PRRD because that is a program, that is a campaign by a government to combat, to eliminate yung mga durugista. At naging effective. Even Richard Gomez said na naging ormok, talamak sa droga, talamak sa krimen, and naging big role yung crime, yung war on drugs ni PRRD. And many of us, hindi lang ormok, buong Pilipinas tumahimik because of that war on drugs program ni PRRD. So, yun ang pinaka-ano doon. And as pinaka-importante dito na nakita natin is etong sinabi ni Solgen 2 years ago would stamp or give us a conclusion na consistent siya at hindi siya kasama dito sa group efforts ng Marcos Jr. kasi ayaw niyang makipag-participate or dumipensa doon sa gusot ni Marcos Jr., nila Remulla, at kung sino pa dyan na nagsagawa ng illegal arrest kay PRRD. So kahit hindi magsalita si Solgen ngayon, the fact remain na tahimik siya ngayon, hindi siya dumipensa, that shows, that gives us a signal na hindi talaga siya boto or hindi talaga siya kasama dito sa parang device plan, game plan ng Marcos Jr. with the Dilawans para pabagsakin ang mga Duterte. As you can see, susunod nila yung confidential fund, impeachment ni VP Sara, which is and no less time mangyayari yan. Susunod din nila sila Bato. Ganun talaga mangyayari dyan. So, anyway, with that, tingnan natin ang susunod na pangyayari dito dahil I know it's a very strong case having attorney Nicholas Kaufman representing PRRD. Alam kong alam nila paano lusutan yan.